Sawubona. That's hello in Zulu in South Africa. I'm Morgan Murphy, and like she said, I'm from Loras College. I recently traveled to South Africa, more so Southern Africa. It was about 2 years ago now. So I did a study abroad through Loras and went there for 6 months. And kind of a little bit about my interests. I was just really intrigued with African culture ever since I was younger. I saw a lot of spirit in the people and a lot of life in them, and I knew they were always dancing crazy and having a really good time, and that their way of life was really relaxed, and so I kind of wanted to go there and see what that was all about. So I chose to go there, and then I guess a couple of basic background things about my trip there was I flew into...
Check if it's on the side.
Yeah, I think just hit that arrow.
Oh, the arrow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I flew into Johannesburg Airport. So Johannesburg is the biggest city in South Africa. So South Africa is its own country. It's in the bottom part of Africa. And Johannesburg is one of the biggest cities. It's called like the Gold City. So it's a huge city. If you were to go there, you would just think that you were in Chicago or, I mean, some big city in the United States. It really doesn't feel like you're in Africa just because it's huge hustle and bustle of the city, okay? So I get there and I see this. And I'm like, this looks pretty modern, you know? I mean, I don't think I'm in Africa right now. When you think of Africa, you think of, you know, a lot of indigenous people, the native people. You think of people living in huts and that. So I showed up at this airport and I'm like, okay, I'm in for a different thing than I thought. So this is the Johannesburg Airport, which is, like I said, the biggest city. Way back, early. I think 1800s, South Africa, or Johannesburg was known as like the gold city. So a lot of gold was dug around there. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of the movie Blood Diamond. A lot of diamonds come from South Africa. So there's a lot of really rich natural resources in South Africa. So I showed up there and then was picked up and moved into this little house with a couple other people. So this is a pretty standard house for South Africans. Nothing too extravagant. One thing you'll notice is that there are bars on the window. They try to make them look pretty fancy, but it doesn't really work. So there's bars on the windows kind of guarding, and then you can't really see, but on this outside part, I was on the corner, so on the outside part there's fences. There's a huge metal fence around my entire house, okay? So this is very common in South Africa. Anywhere you go, and in other countries like Namibia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe, any of these southern African countries, a lot of the houses are fenced in because there is a really high crime rate there. So when in my house, there would be a guard walking around my premises for 24 hours of the day. So because there's a lot of crime there, they want to keep you safe, and that's why there's these huge fences. So I lived in Pretoria, South Africa, which is the neighboring city to Johannesburg, and Pretoria is the capital of South Africa. So I think you guys watched Invictus. So a lot of that was taking place in Pretoria, actually. And Pretoria is where they have the big rugby team, the Bulls, which is the Pretoria national rugby team. So, like I said, I flew into Johannesburg, which is right here, and then Pretoria is...
Teachers, they are doing recycling today. Please put your recycling out now. Thank you.
And then Pretoria is just right there, a little bit north. So as you can see, South Africa is a really big country. You guys know that. And within, there's 2 countries within South Africa, Swaziland and Lesotho. Lesotho is actually, there's no cars allowed in the country. It's very native. So you won't see any cars, you won't see any stores, no banks, nothing like that. So the people living in this country are living off the land. They're producing all their own medicines. I met with an herbal medicine doctor. So, I mean, something that you would probably see in a movie, but she's, wearing all of her traditional African garb, and she heals all the people in the village with the natural medicine. So that's Lesotho. It's a very remote country. And then Swaziland is, that's actually where there's the highest population of HIV and AIDS in South Africa. So Swaziland is, it's a more troubled country definitely than South Africa, but yeah, so I was in the northern part of South Africa, and as you can see, I'll talk a lot about the southern coast. That's what I mean when I mean southern coast. And then I traveled actually to Namibia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. I'm sure a lot of you have maybe heard of Zimbabwe on the news, and how dangerous it is there. Not even really dangerous, but it's a very poor country. So I'll talk a little bit about my time in these 3 countries and then South Africa. So like I said, I was there for 6 months in total. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about the physical characteristics, the makeup of the land. So first, I guess I'll break down the culture a little bit. You guys watched Invictus, so you know a lot about the rugby. There's kind of 2 main, I guess, cultures in South Africa. So there's because of colonization, so Europe came over and colonized Southern Africa. There's a lot of British people, Dutch people from Holland, a lot of Australian people, a lot of Indian people came over. So South Africa is really a melting pot for all of the world. When you go there, you'll see white people calling themselves African. You'll see black people calling themselves African. You'll see Indian people calling themselves African. So really, when you come to South Africa, it is one nation, you are one South Africa. And like Invictus, and you'll see rugby is a lot of the more Afrikaans, that's more of the white British, Dutch. Afrikaans is more, rugby is associated more with the white Afrikaans. And then soccer, football is a lot of what the Native African people play there. So that's the big sport there, soccer. So because of history and tensions in history, there's still a lot of racial tension actually there. So there's clashing between a lot of the different cultures within South Africa. So not everybody gets along all the time, like you might think. So that's one interesting part. And then South Africa has 11 official languages. So in the United States we have 1, English. South Africa there's 11. So imagine having to know 11 languages to get around. It's really complex. I mean, when you see a sign in the airport, there's 11 different languages up there that you are like, what? What are these languages? But so because there's so many different people in South Africa, they need to make the official languages. There's a lot of them. So like I said, in Zulu, Sawubona is hello. And then in Afrikaans, they speak a lot of, it's really, I think, more of Australian, so it's, they say, how's it, my brew? So they say, how's it a lot when you approach someone, how's it, like, how's it going? And then you have Xhosa, which is where you hear the clicks. So when you think of maybe some African tribes, you think, okay, so Xhosa is the language that has the clicks. And so, for instance, I worked with a kid when I was there, and his name was Nantlala. So it's really, I mean, it's hard to pick up on that language, but so there's a lot of languages spoken in South Africa. And then I guess I'm on to now some of more of the physical characteristics of the land. So what does the land look like in South Africa? Does anybody have any idea? What do you think about when you think of Southern Africa? Think desert, think mountains? You do, you think mountains. Okay, that's actually spot on right there. When I thought of South Africa, I thought of desert. You know, I think of Pride of Lion just running across a flat desert, but really South Africa is very mountainous. This is in Pretoria where Invictus was filmed. So as you can see, there's a lot of rolling hills. It's really modern. South Africa is a modern country. In the cities, when you go outside of the cities, there's definitely the rural element of Africa, so you see a lot of the small villages and stuff like that. Mountains in South Africa are much different than what we think of. They're not covered with snow. There's no big peaks like this or anything. A lot of them are flat. So this is what the mountain ranges look like in South Africa. They're really unique, really good for rock climbing. You see a lot of rock climbers there. Like I said, there's just a lot of unique mountain structure in Southern Africa. But then you also have the jungle element of Africa. Along the coast, you have really, really thick forests. I mean, you walk from the dry mountains, and then you drive 5 hours, and then you have the really thick forest. So it's really interesting, the contrast there with the ranges. You have really unique rock structures along the coast. So, formations like this, and you find people jumping into the water off up there, and they're just really interesting formations along the coast. And then this is in Namibia, the country north of South Africa. Like I said, a lot of people might consider this to look like Arizona somewhat. There's dry desert, and then you have this unique rock sculpture. So this is more of the northern part. It's really dry up there. And then this is also Namibia. So this is where I think of the desert plains in South Africa, or in Africa. You know, you see the pack of zebra running across, springboks, and all these different animals running across these large plains that are just dry and desolate. There's nothing for miles. So these are actually all pictures that I took, just so you guys know. And this is in Namibia. Like I said, you have nothing for these for these animals to really eat. Really dry, lots of water, or not a lot of water, but lots of water drought happening. When I was in South Africa, I saw a lot of cool animals. I went on all safaris. So you have the Big Five. Does anyone know what the Big Five is? What are the Big Five animals? Nobody really has me here. What would you think? For many guesses.
Elephants.
Okay, elephants. Not zebras. Lions. Yep. So like, I guess the Big Five are considered the most well-known, I guess, powerful animals of the jungle. So we have elephants, lions. Tigers are actually in Asia, so tigers are not in Africa. I thought that though. Not giraffes, actually. No, they're too nice. Giraffes are too nice. Hippos are not. These are actually the four of the five. So we have the rhino, we have the leopard, we have the elephant, lion, and then we have a buffalo. And actually, the buffalo is the most dangerous animal. It has big horns and everything, because if you approach a buffalo and you come into contact with them, they will not back off until you are dead. So they will not let you get away. They will chase you, they will attack you until you're dead. So that's how they attack, is when they find their prey, they won't let it go, where some animals will just let it go and you might get off and run away, but not true for buffaloes. Also, hippos are one of the most dangerous animals. They actually kill the most humans out of any animal on the planet, because they are the same way as buffaloes. They will eat the human, even though they aren't meat eaters. Hippos and buffaloes are definitely the most dangerous. Elephants will give you a warning sign. So you can see right here, the elephant is giving us a warning sign. You're too close to me, get away. So he's doing that. And then, actually, this is a cheetah. And you can tell the difference between a cheetah and a leopard. They look very similar because the spots are similar. They look the same. But then you can tell the cheetah has a tear mark. So you see these black marks right there? That's how you can tell the difference between a cheetah and a leopard.
Hey Morgan, I have a question. When
Yeah.
you went on the safaris, do you like go in like a jeep? I guess that's what I'm picturing. Or do you
Yeah.
walk the land, or
Yeah.
how does it work?
I actually had the chance to do both. So I rode in the back of a Jeep, open Jeep, so you're going through the brush, just driving through, and then I also did a couple walking safaris. So with the walking safaris, you're with a person of like the native land. So they live there, they know everything about the land, they know how to read the animals, they can like scent and they can track the animals' tracks. So obviously it's very dangerous if you come across a lion and you're on foot. So so I had an opportunity to do both. Also, one thing I just want to say to you guys, if you want more in-depth answers or something that I'm talking about, feel free to ask a question, okay? Like, do not hesitate, because I want more participation too. So, and then some natural hazards that they have is there's a lot of drought in the summer. Summer months are actually from in our winter months. So like November until March is their summer. So right now in Africa it's really, really hot, like 90s to 100. So it's really dry, not a lot of water. So as you can see, this is a river that obviously doesn't have any water in it because it's really dry. So some of the cool land structures that I saw when I was there is Victoria Falls. This is one of the 7 natural world wonders. huge, huge waterfall. This doesn't even do justice, this picture. So you're standing there and you're getting drenched with water. So, and then I also saw, I went to the Okavango Delta. So that's an area in southern Africa where all of the rivers from Africa come down and flood one area. So it turns into this big wetland like you would see in Florida if you go to Florida with the wetlands down there. But this one is massive. I mean, it's like huge, huge, huge. It takes up a lot of southern Africa. And so it turns into these grasses with water in the middle. So it's not like people can't live there, but there's a lot of wildlife there. So you go there, and this is a man, he lives on the land. We actually just kind of went and met these people, and they took us out on their Makora boats, it's called. This is the base of a tree. So they just cut a tree and hollowed it out in the middle, and made this kind of canoe. And this is how they get around in the delta. They stand there, they stand in the back, and they push with their pole right there. So that's really interesting. That's how they get around. That's how they transport from different villages through the delta. They use that form of transportation. And like I said, I saw in the Namibia, like the truest desert, like you guys saw before. This is also an indigenous woman of Namibia. We just came across her. She was selling some of her goods on the side of the road. This is what they wear. So you can imagine it's like 95 degrees out. This lady is in a full dress with long sleeves on. It's really, really warm for her. So this is also just another part. This is the Himba tribe in Namibia. So a lot of these people just sell their goods, and they live actually in those huts. So yeah, that's the Himba tribe. So there are still, as much as you think South Africa is a more modern country, there's definitely elements of the rural. So if you go outside of the cities, a lot of this rural lifestyle comes to the forefront. And then a lot of people that are working in the city actually live outside of the city in the townships. They're called townships, and so this is an example of a township. A lot of these people just build their own home. They don't have to pay for property taxes or anything like that. They just build up these little huts and then live there and kind of create their own life. So it's a cheap way of living, and a lot of these people will get on the train and go work in the city. So much like the suburbs, this is kind of like the equivalent to the suburbs of a big city, or yeah, so a lot of problems here with sanitation, obviously. Water isn't the cleanest. The people living here don't have a lot of access to you know, hygiene, and garbage is just thrown, like you can see it, where they like just throw garbage. There's no really form of the dump truck coming and picking it up. A lot of them just pile it up, and it just kind of sits there. And, so that's kind of a problem there. I'll just stay here. I guess a couple of things in relation to the U.S. So like I said, I'm kind of making some comparisons from life in South Africa to life in the U.S. But as far as lifestyle goes, it's much, much different. The people in Africa, they say that they're on Africa time. So a lot of times that means showing up to meetings 15 minutes late. Or for instance, I had to be picked up from the airport, and the person didn't show up for more than an hour. So they just kind of say, oh, well, it's Africa time. You have to get on our time. You know, things happen when they happen. So we're not in a rush at all over there. So in comparison to the U.S., where everybody's got to, you know, you got to go to a class, you got to do this, you got to go to practice, you got to, you know, do all this stuff right away. South Africa, or Africa in general, is just very laid back. So that's a key difference. And then I think a big thing in Southern Africa, they really have almost any kind of landscape. So within one country, they have all the landscape that the United States would have. They have the desert, they have the mountains, they have, you know, the shore, they have the plains. So they have all, you know, all of that combined into one country. And then, like I said, a lot of the people that are living in like these rural areas don't know English. So most people in South Africa do know English, but a lot of these people speak their native tongue, and so it's hard to communicate with them. You do, you just kind of like do signs with your hands and stuff like that. And then the jobs in South Africa. So like I kind of said before, a lot of people live out here and then go into the city for jobs, and it's pretty similar to a lot of jobs maybe your parents would have. I mean, it's there's a lot of business jobs that are there. I mean, South Africa is a booming country, and especially with the World Cup there. Last year there was a lot of jobs that were made up, so a lot of labor jobs, and that's kind of the problem that South Africa is seeing, is that the World Cup came and a lot of people got jobs. Now the World Cup isn't there anymore, and now people don't have jobs anymore, so that's causing some problems for the economy there too. And then I have just some, I guess some basic things. This is everybody know who Nelson Mandela is? Yeah, Nelson Mandela. This is actually his jail cell on Robben Island, and he was in prison for a lot of his life. I had a chance to go visit that, so it's a very, very small jail cell. Obviously, he didn't have a lot to work with, but he was still starting a revolution for the country within these very walls. So, this is Cape Town. I'm sure a lot of you've heard of Cape Town. That's the big city in South Africa. This is called Table Mountain. So they just call it that because it's a tabletop. Like I said, a lot of the mountains are flat in South Africa. And yeah, the cities are booming. It's just like a really cool overall city, but it has a lot of different ethnics. So, there's a lot of Europeans there. So there's a mix of Europeans, Africans, Indians. So a lot of the food there, you don't really think about as African. It's a lot of mix of different cultures there. So you can go to an African restaurant and they'll be serving Indian food. So it's really a mixture of people there. That's really neat about it. But the traditional food in South Africa is called pap, and it's corn maize actually, ground up. And so a lot of people eat it with their hands. It's kind of like grits, if you know grits. It's a white substance that's just kind of, it's really small and like a paste. You can eat it with your hands. A lot of them do. A lot of them eat a lot of fish. They eat zebra actually, which is really chewy. They eat a lot of the antelopes, so springboks, kudu, a lot of these different kind of antelopes that are there. And then they really, really love food. So, and then they have a lot of spinach actually. They eat spinach with their hands, and spinach and pap is their main thing that they like to eat.
So do they eat zebra instead of like eating like a burger or what?
A lot of times they'll eat like an ostrich bird. So they eat ostrich too. That's like, yeah, that would be like the equivalent of, they would eat probably springbok before they would eat probably a beef hamburger. Yeah. So. And then in Cape Town, this is the traditional houses that they had. What they would do back in the day is they would identify their house by the color. So on the postage stamp, they would say, lime green house on 3rd Street or whatever. So they wouldn't have numbers, and so this was just the way of, this just kind of sums up South Africa. It's not really, there's not a lot of structure in some ways. They just kind of, go by the seat, fly by the seat of their pants, and it's really cool. And yeah, and so I actually have some money, South African money and stuff that I kind of want to send around. We have the Bank of Zimbabwe, so this is actually $100 trillion, and it's on the bill. The money is not worth very much there, and so I bought this for like about $1. Their inflation rate is really, really high, and so they can't really buy much with their own money. So if you just want to check this out. And then I have South African money, and that's called the Rand, R-A-N-D. The Rand is about $1 is equal to 6 Rand. So it's a better rate, but not as good as when I was there. It was $1 equals 10 rands, but now it's going down because the dollar is falling too. So, and look at just the design on the money is really, really interesting too. And then I have Namibian dollars. I'm not, these are just called dollars, Namibia is too. So, and this is more equal to the US dollar. And then Botswana dollar, which is the pula, and this is also about equal to the US dollar as well. And then, does anybody know what this thing is called, or does this look familiar?
Yeah. So you blow on it.
Yes. What was this used for? Or where did you see a lot of these?
Hockey games?
The World Cup games, yes, definitely. This is called the vuvuzela. In South Africa, this is a really, really festive instrument. They take it to all the games. It's really, really loud. I don't want to blow on it right now, but it's a really, really festive thing. So you'll see a lot of people walking around South Africa with this. And then art is a big, big part of South African culture. And so, or African culture in general. So you'll see a lot of women working on art pieces, a lot of sculpting of rock that are made into necklaces. So this is a type of stone in Africa, and they carve it into necklaces. And a lot of people, you'll see African people wearing this little necklace, and what this is like for good health and kind of like a happy life. So they wear this as like a charm around their neck usually. And then, yeah, so a lot of their artwork is stone, like I said, or else made out of wood. This is all made out of wood. So really, really thin wood carvings, and it's placed onto things like this. So, and then kind of just basic thing in regards to cars and driving. South Africa, the people drive on the left side of the road, so it's opposite of us, and when you are in the car, it's also on the other side, so it's on the passenger side. So first time I went to a car, I got in the passenger side, and the driver was like, "What are you doing? I'm driving." And so it's kind of confusing. And when you're crossing the road, you don't look left first, you look right first, because they're coming on this side of the road, so you can get hit easily. And then a lot of people there drive small cars. There's no big Suburbans or no big vans driving around. Like, that is a big taboo in African culture. Just because they think it's very wasteful of money and gas and time. So a lot of them just drive little cars, like little Volkswagen cars, like little Beetles, little Golfs, like all those types of little cars are just scooting around everywhere. So gotta watch out for those. And then the public transportation there's called these mini taxis. So they're these white vans that drive around everywhere. They don't have any like big, or they have some buses, I guess, but it's called these mini taxis. So when you need a ride somewhere, you go up there and you just go like this to them and like wave your finger, and then every mini taxi has a certain route. So you have to ask them where you're going. Okay, I want to go there. You hop in, and it's probably 10 people packed into this little van. You can barely sit. There's no seatbelts, and they're driving like crazy. So it's not a very organized public transportation, but it works. And then, I guess, a typical day, it's really for an African teenager, really depends on where you're living in South Africa. Like I said, if you're living in the rural areas, you'll much more likely be doing work on the farm. You'll be working with your family. You'll be working in town, you know, at the little shop that your family has. Or if you're living in the city, you'll be going to a school just like every one of you. A lot of people in especially Southern Africa living in the big cities live pretty much a similar lifestyle to you. So they'll play sports, they'll go to games, they'll be in band, they'll do a lot of the same things. So it's really not, even though they're across the world, it's really not that different than the life that you guys are living.
How long is their school day? Is it similar to us, and are the subjects the same?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely, I think it actually might be a little bit longer, and they actually go to school for longer too. They don't have like 3 full summer months off usually. It kind of depends on what school you go to, but a lot of them they only have maybe like a month off in the summer. And so their school system is very, very intense. They want to get up to the same standards as the US and the Western world, so they want to educate their youth a lot. So a lot of them are in school for a long time. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free, if you, whatever comes to your mind, just ask. Yeah.
Why isn't there like tall buildings?
Why isn't there tall buildings? Well, in the three main cities, so there's three main cities in South Africa. We have Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Pretoria.
Like Cape Town, there was like one.
What's that?
Like Cape Town, there was only one.
Yeah. Cape Town, like there's not tall skyscrapers, but if you were to go to Johannesburg, there's really, really tall, I mean, it looks like it's Chicago or something. It's tall skyscrapers. But I think in Cape Town, you can see the city. So this is, I mean, the main one, but, I mean, yeah, they're probably only like 20, 30 stories high. I mean, it looks kind of far because I'm off on the water, but when you're in the city, I mean, it feels like a bigger city, but it's definitely more spread out. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I think probably because it's closer to the water, and like in case there was any flooding, they wouldn't have to build up so much. So, but I'm not exactly sure. That's a good question. Did you want?
Yeah, were you there during like the dry months or like the what?
I got there in the middle of summer. So I got there in December, and it was so hot. I mean, it was really, you could not walk outside without breaking into sweat instantly. So, and then I actually got to see when it turned to winter, and it turned really, really cold. I'd have to sleep at night with a heater. I mean, you think Africa and you don't think it would get cold, but it really, really does since it's in the south so much. It would get down to 40 degrees, so.
So does it snow there?
It doesn't snow actually, no, it won't snow, but I guess in the top of, you'll get a little bit of flurries and stuff up here at the top of the mountains, but you'll never see like a heavy snow like we see, no. What else? Yeah?
Like in the cities, do they like dress like normal like we do or?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm just wearing, this is my African skirt that I got in Village, but no, they definitely dress like us. I mean, they're very trendy. If you saw a South African person, you would think they came straight from the city of Chicago or something. They're very trendy. They get a lot of their dress style from Europe. So you have in the city, yeah, they're very up to date on what's going on. But in the rural areas, not so much. They just don't really care. They'll wear skirts like this. Just it's a different. They value a different way of dress. So what else?
Did you have to get like a certain amount of shots or anything like that to go down there, or like like medically, were there any worries heading that way? Or?
Yeah, one big worry is malaria. I don't know if you guys have heard of malaria. It's travels through mosquitoes, and so if you get bit by a mosquito that's infected with malaria, you'll get really, really sick. It's flu times 100. So you cannot get out of bed, and you curled over, can't eat, cold sweat, fever. It's horrible. So they put me on malaria medicine. So when I had to go up into the northern parts, I had to be on those pills. But around the cities and stuff in South Africa, not really. I had to get, I can't remember, it was like 1 or 2 other shots, but it wasn't anything. I mean, Southern Africa isn't, I had to be more careful when I went up into like Namibia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. Then I had to like really be careful about what I was eating and stuff like that, so yeah. Anything, yeah?
Was it like scary to go on safaris like with all the animals?
It wasn't. I loved it so much. I just really wanted to see like a hunt. So I got to see that actually. I got to see a Peka zebra being hunted by a pride of lioness. And so there was, we were actually on the safari truck and saw 2 lioness, which is female lions, kind of surrounding this. We saw like maybe 4 or 5 zebras in the middle, and then there was 3 lioness like stationed around them, and you can see the grass is really high, and so it's like tan grass, and so the lioness like were underneath the grass and were very slowly creeping through the grass. You couldn't even hear them, you couldn't see them barely, but we just saw them because they were on the side of the road kind of, And so we watched the hunt, we sat there for about 20 minutes, and the lioness were very strategic. I mean, they were, creeping through the grass, and so the zebra were just sitting there grazing, eating, and it was really cool. We saw them all come in and attack the pride of, or the pack of zebra, and I saw one of them just barely, like the claws, I just saw the claws like getting back in the zebra's butt, and the zebra just got away, but it was all scratched up and stuff. So I missed that, but yeah, it was, but then after that you're kind of shook up, because you're like, oh, the poor zebra, but I don't know, it was really neat to see that, but I was really only scared one time when that elephant was giving us the warning sign, flapping its ears at us, because they'll just charge the truck and they won't wait. So that was kind of scary. And then one other thing that happened was I was out on one of those Makora boats like I showed you. We were out there on those boats in the water, and we didn't know this, but my friends were in it, and they were going to jump off and jump into the water and go swimming, and all of a sudden they saw a bunch of bubbles coming up underneath the water, and like, that looks like a really big fish, maybe we should jump in. So thinking about like turning around, going back to shore, and before they could turn around, the boat was lifted up, a hippo was underneath it and flipped over the boat, and they got thrown into the water and didn't know what it was, turned around and just saw the hippo like with its mouth really open. Like that was another warning sign, is the hippo will open its mouth really wide and just kind of like go like this with its mouth and saying like, get out of my area. And so that was really scary, because obviously we know that hippos are the most dangerous, kill the most humans, and so we were really shooken up by that. But yeah, so that's kind of the only two really scary incidents I had with animals.
Do those safaris cost money, or can you just go whenever?
Yeah, it kind of depends. Like, if you want to go, a lot of the parks you can just drive through with your own car, actually. And then if you want to go to more of the remote land where there's not a lot of people, but it's just more the natural life where there's not roads and stuff, you have to pay money for that. It's pretty expensive, actually. What other questions you guys have? What else did you guys learn about that really struck your interest about South Africa?
I have a question.
Yeah.
How long were like the safaris? How long did they last?
It kind of depends on what you want to see. So when you'll see the most animals is in the morning and late at dusk. And so we would wake up about 3:30 and go from 4 until about 10, and then you take a break in the middle of the day because that's the hottest time of the day. No animals will be out then. And then you'll come at night, and you'll go about like 3 until about maybe 8. So the morning and night are the best. Yeah.
Is stuff cheaper there? Like,
Yes, since the rand is, it's like $6 for $1, and so a lot of stuff is cheaper. So a lot of times it would be cheaper to go out to dinner than it would to be at home, to go and like buy something from the store and eat at home. So that was a lot cheaper, and then just traveling is a lot cheaper. It's about like $50 for a flight to from Cape Town to Johannesburg. So it's really cheap there, and then like just everything in general is a lot cheaper. So you can do a lot more stuff.
Do you see westernization like McDonald's there, or is it just, I guess, mainly South African?
Yeah, you
businesses?
see actually McDonald's.
do they have burgers? Like
Burgers?
beef burgers?
They have, you can go to a restaurant that will have that. It would be like an American cuisine or something like that, but they do have McDonald's, but you see a lot of South African fast food places. So they kind of have their own fast food chains, but not really, you won't see like a Taco Bell or anything like that. The most you would probably see is a McDonald's. So, but you definitely see influences in the big cities from the Western world. You feel like you're in America or in the big cities. Yeah.
Okay, when you were on the safari, I'm pretty sure you would, but did you have people like there with you with guns? So like,
Yeah. good question. Yeah, so there's, when you have a safari guide, they always have, a gun. So they, will know the warning signs of the animal first, and so they're never gonna shoot their gun unless they feel that we're in danger. So, there's a lot of different warning signs that animals will give if you're getting too close to them. So like I said before, like flapping of the ears is the first warning sign for elephant, and then they'll start going like this with their trunk and like waving their trunk at you. And so a lot of those main warning signs will say get out of there, and if you don't, then they'll charge you. And so, but then there are those cases where animals just charge you and you don't know that they're gonna do that, and so they're very talented, and I think a lot of the guides come from the bush, we call it the bush, and so they know the animals in and out. So they know the habits of the animals, they know what they're gonna do, how they're gonna act, and they can, even like a lot of the guides that I had could track the animals, so they know all the footprints, and even when I would look down and I would see grass, they could still see the footprint in the grass. And so they have this really, really strong knack for that kind of stuff. And they can like smell the animals and, yeah, so it's really, really interesting how they do that. Yeah,
What type of animals do they hunt?
do they hunt?
Yeah, like
That's a
what
good
animals
question.
do they hunt?
Yeah, actually you can hunt zebra, you can hunt any of the big five. So what were the big five?
Lions, cheetahs,
I heard it somewhere. Yeah, so you can hunt the big five, but you have to get a permit for that, so it costs a lot of money to go do that. And so a lot of people will hunt zebras, they'll hunt like springbucks, which is a form of an antelope, so like a deer in a sense, and then kudu. Yeah, so anything that you really want to eat, I mean, you don't really want to hunt an elephant because it's not going to be like tasting very good, you know? And so a lot of people will hunt a lot of the antelopes.
Do they hunt like elephant hippos though, and then like hang them up on the wall like we do deer? Like
Yeah,
no.
that's a good question. I don't know. I don't actually know exactly if you can do that. I never saw any of that when I was little.
Do they have,
I don't know. It's really hard.
do they
No,
have like
'cause
seasons?
I think yes, I think they do have seasons. There's
they kill
definitely.
elephants and.
You have to go to the, like you have to go here, like to the DNR or whatever, you have to go, they get a permit and, talk to, I mean, a lot of people will go from America to South Africa just to hunt. Like, that's their dream, because they wanna get one of the big five, you know, and they wanna hunt one of those. So, they have a lot of regulations though. I mean, that costs thousands of dollars to get like a permit to hunt one of those big five. And so, it's something that people, you know, save up for their whole life to do. But I think when it's like, well, I talked to one of the village men, and he lives in a village where a lot of times lions will just come through and eat their crops or eat their cattle and stuff like that. And so, you know, it's a very real element like we have here that, you know, animals will come and destroy crops and stuff. And so a lot of the people in the villages will just shoot the lions without even any kind of permit or anything, but since it was ruining their crops and their livestock, they don't want them around. And so that then contributes to why lions are really, really, really decreasing in numbers. And so you will not see a lot of lions very much anymore in South Africa because a lot of the village people are hunting them. Not hunting them, but killing them just to keep them away from their livestock. So it's kind of a sad thing for the lions, I guess, but and just for the danger of the people too, they want to keep them away. So that's a really good question I have. What other things? Anything else?
Could you demonstrate that click language again that you're talking about?
Yeah, I know. I don't really know. I forget. I was trying to look it up yesterday, but I forget how to say like hello and goodbye, because you don't remember when you've done it. But so I had a student. His name was Naglakla. So it's like in the back of your tongue, and you're going like that. Or they have okay. For instance, the language we would say Xhosa. It's XH. It's XHOSA. Anytime there's an X and an H together, it makes a Okay, so Xhosa is the name of the language. Xhosa. And then, anytime there's like a CH to it, there's so it's written like it looks like a normal language. So my student's name was Nhwa. So it looks like, sorry, you can't really read my handwriting very well, but it looks like a normal language. So NCHLA. They use all English letters, but the putting of the letters together is what makes the click. So Xhosa, yeah. Yeah.
So did you like learn like all those like pieces of the different languages or?
No, I actually got around with just speaking English because, I mean, that's pretty much what you can do there, but just from being around the people for a long time, and it's hard to tell what language you're speaking though, since there's so many languages, and especially in the African languages, there's a lot of languages that use the clicks, and so when they would be speaking in clicks, I had no idea what language they were speaking, but I just got around with English because, I mean, if no matter what you speak, they always usually speak English too. That's what they're taught to in most of the schools. So, yeah.
Like, did you have to pay the guard to guard your house?
No, I didn't actually. That's a good question. We didn't have to pay the guard, but I think it's just because we were living at the university. They have guards that are there all the time watching your house, and so you have to go anywhere that you go. In order to get into a building, you have to either swipe a card or you have to use a key to open the gate. So, I mean, imagine even just coming to school. Whenever I had to walk to my classes, I had to go through this huge metal barricade and swipe my card, go through the circle, the spinning metal thing, and walk in. So you could never just walk to class. You had to stand there. First, you had to open your gate to your house, open the gate to the house, and then you had to walk through the gate of the village, and then you had to walk through the gate of the school. And so, I mean, when you're walking along the sidewalks, the neighborhoods do not look anything like they do here. I mean, there would not be any neighbors with open lawns, sharing lawns. No, that would never happen. It's just when you're walking down the road, you see a complete line of fences. Like it's thick, I mean, huge metal bars that are just like guarding every single house, and every single house has bars on the window. I mean, it's not like it's so scary that you can't walk outside by yourself. It's not like that, but it's just more of a protection factor for your house, and I think that's how it is just for the culture. So we're used to having, nothing guarding our houses here. They're just used to having a fence around their house, so it's not even a big deal to them at all. It's a good question. Yeah.
With the language, do you like pick up any of it? Like, did you just like pick it up at all?
The only language which is the most common spoken in South Africa is Zulu, and so a couple of my roommates were actually learning Zulu, so they took classes, and so they would speak it around the house, or they would try, and I picked up on some stuff. I mean, I could tell like when they were saying like, "What are you doing today? Where are you going?" Stuff like that. But I just like from being around it, yeah, and just hearing it. But Zulu doesn't have any clicks, so that's kind of easier to pick up on, I think, a little bit. But I can't really remember any of it now, so just like.
What classes did you take while you were down there?
I took basically all the classes you can take here. The universities there are just like equivalent to University of like Iowa or something like that. I went to a huge university there, very, very well educated students there, very smart people. And I took just like a psychology class, I took an economics class, I took African history class, and a human environmental interaction class. But then all of the students in South Africa, no matter what school, wear uniforms. So this would never happen, people wearing whatever they want, which is, I mean, why they do that is because they don't want people to know who is more poor than the other person, so they want to have an equal, everyone looks the same. You don't know where they come from, because a lot of the students will come into the city for school, and they're from the townships, and so they just want everyone to be the same, and so there's no, you can't tell who's from a township and who's from the city and who's, yeah.
So you wore uniform too then?
What's that?
You wore?
No, I was at the university, actually I take that back. At the high school level and elementary level, they all wear uniforms, but then at the university, you can wear whatever you want. Yeah. Yeah,
Do they have like dogs and cats, like dogs for protection?
yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I never really saw any dogs. Like, we have a lot of, yeah, like house pets and stuff. That's not very common over there at all. So I think that's a very American, American trait. A lot of people have, you know, those pets, but not at all over there. No, that's a really good question. Yeah.
Okay, you said that they have soccer, right? And
Mhm.
rugby. Did they ever have like actual like our kind of football? You know, soccer and football? They've never-
No, they don't have any kind of,
Football
So-
and soccer over there.
Well, like,
Yeah.
I have like an actual. like,
the
football.
equivalent to our football is rugby. So when you go, I mean, when I went to the rugby game, it was just like I was at a Vikings game. Like, it was huge, I mean, it was like, that's kind of the equivalent. Like, they have the huge crowds coming to those games, it's like the NFL. So that's what it, and soccer is a difference, I mean, soccer is much different over there than it is here. That's the game to play over there is soccer, so. Yeah.
At the university and stuff, were there any like technology differences?
Yes, that's a good one. There is no access to internet on the university campus at all. So, I mean, at our school now, like, you can have the internet anywhere that you want, all the time. In South Africa, there's, like, even in people's houses, a lot of times, they didn't have internet. You would have to go to an internet cafe. So you would go, I would go there and pay my money for however long I want to stay on the internet, and then I would sit there with 30 other people around me and just work on the computer there and then leave. So there wasn't really, you know, nobody had laptops in their campus at all. Not many of them ever like would have a projector. Like, you would just have the basic chalkboard, and it was still very, very basic. So they didn't have any technology like we do here. I mean, even this is really extravagant for South African education. Yeah.
So like phones were, like,
Yeah, like phones, I mean, everyone has cell phones and stuff, like, everyone does, but it's a different